And welcome to the 153rd episode of The Greatest Show. I'm DJ Allen. I'm joined by my wife, Tricia, and our very special guest, Dirk Manning.
Finally! Thank you for having me.
For those of you that are not privy to the behind the scenes, I have been trying to get him since around episode 90.
It's been a minute. We've had a lot of near business.
He's a busy guy.
Well, we both, have things come up and stuff, but we're here now. The time is right. That's all.
Yes.
It's just finally the apropos time. Tricia said, "You know what, Dirk, do it now." And I said, "Yes, ma'am." She said she's gonna wear her Cthulhu shirt, which is all it really took to get me here. And
I know. I thought I would have that on this morning, and I'm like, this is gonna be perfect.
Oh, I thought you wore that not to be vain or nothing, but I thought you wore that special. That's just a coincidence.
I didn't until like an hour and a half ago, and then it was on purpose.
So while I was getting my setup, she's in the bathroom. She must have been doing a little something with her hair. She goes, "Ooh, baby Cthulhu is a good thing to have on for this." And I'm like, "Yes, it is."
That's very appropriate with the Cthulhu Junior book and stuff. Yeah, absolutely.
I am jealous of one thing behind you, Dirk. I have to start out
by saying my quarantine.
Well, there is that, but nothing grows up here anymore. Nothing grows up here anymore. No, but the spinner rack behind you.
Yeah. That is actually an old school spinner rack, and you probably can't tell because the pictures are blurry because my office is a disaster. But it is actually one of the original spinner racks. So on it has Richie Rich, Spider-Man, Archie, and Superman, and it says comics, read one today. So it's like one of those old school ones from back in the day that weighs 10,000 pounds. My goal is one of my goals in life is to fill a spinner rack with all my own titles. So that's what that spinner rack is. That's all my own books. It's getting there. We're not there yet, but we're getting closer and closer. And as the years go on, I'm getting more and more there. But one of my goals has always been an old school spinner rack to legit fill it ethically, not spread it out, but with all my own work, So that's kind of my one of my motivations. One of my life list moments is when I've filled a spinner rack with my own work.
Now, do you mean one title only per slot, or?
Well, see, and that's the thing that gets tricky because, you take books like Nightmare World, for example, and their original graphic novels. So what I'll do is I'll put volume 1. Yeah, there you go, right? Yeah. Boom.
Did I get those for you in Ohio?
You did. You know what?
Okay. Oh yeah, well, we'll have to go to that story at some point.
Yes, totally. But yeah, so what I'll do is volume 1, volume 2, volume 3, volume 4. So I'll put each one in a slot.
That's legitimate.
Yeah, that I see that
I see them all. That's
what I consider fair. Now, when we did Hope, for example, which was a 6-issue miniseries, or Part of the Highons, which was a 1-shot and then a 5-issue miniseries, I don't go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 all the way down. Rather, the 1-shot is in a slot. The miniseries is in a slot. So that's how I do it. I mean, otherwise I could have that thing filled twice over by now if I wanted to pad it. But I want to do it fairly. So all of Hope Volume 1 is in a slot. And go that way. And I'm getting close. I haven't counted how many spots I have left yet because I just want to be organic. But yeah, well, so that's that.
And back in the day when I started collecting, I went through an entire spinner rack. There was 2 locations in the town we both grew up because we both came from the same tiny little town in North Dakota. And yeah. I would go through every comic in each slot because, I would find, so I started with all Spider-Man and then I kind of slowly branched out as I discovered other things in there. Mm-hmm. And what I noticed is the people stocking the things didn't really pay attention to what was in each slot. So I would, Spider-Man, right. Spider-Man. What the hell's Iron Man doing in here?
Right.
And they were all like that, and there was all kinds of stuff. So if I know at one point I was missing an issue of something, I was really upset about it, and it was at the bottom, in between two issues of Green Lantern, at the very bottom, and I was like, oh.
Yeah, you gotta dig around and like hope it's there, and yeah.
Oh,
It's
great
funny.
stuff.
I actually started buying comics for the first time at a skateboard shop. I was a skater when I was a teenager, and I've always been a voracious reader. And I went in there, and the guy had like all of a sudden like this, magazine rack, like a whole wall of like magazine shelving, I should say, and it was comics. And I didn't really read. I mean, I was aware of comics, I'd seen them here and there before that, and read a couple here and there, but didn't read them or collect them or anything like that. But I was like, wow, this will be cool because I will if I find something I like, I'll have something new to read every month. That was the draw to me of comics, was the fact that, oh my gosh, I could have something new to read every month. That'll be, this will just be absolutely, incredible. Well, from there, then I migrated over to the local grocery store, which had a spinner rack. And it was that same thing. And my traumatic spinner rack experience was not that they ran out, but like my parents dropped me off, like they pulled up in front of the grocery store. I have my $1. I run in there. I grab the book. I go to the cash register. I give them the $1. I'm all set. And she goes, "Oh no, it's like $1.25." I'm like, "No, they're $1." Well, it's when the price had just gone up. I'm like, and she's like, "Sorry, $1.25." So I had to run back out to the car, get a quarter from my folks, come back in to buy it. And I'm like, "Really? You just couldn't?" I mean, I get it. A quarter's a quarter. But I remember at the time, and I was like, I didn't have a lot of money or nothing. I was all excited. I had like the $1 for the book, and so that was my my traumatic spinner rack story.
So how old are you?
What year is it? 45.
What year is it indeed?
What month
is your birthday? Been the same year for like 5 years.
January.
Oh my God. Okay, so my birthday is also in January, and I'm 44. So
I'm Aquarius.
Yeah, no, Capricorn.
Oh, you're Capricorn.
Oh.
No harm about. We're close. We're still January. We can still have January. That's
fine. When I started collecting, they were all $1, and yes, I remember the 125 that was catastrophic because I was collecting so many books at that point, and when the $1.25 happened, I'm like, I completely have to cut out a large chunk of what I was doing because I didn't have the budget anymore. I was like, no!
It's a 25% jump, and that's serious, At the time, I wasn't reading many comics, but I was reading like Ghost Rider and maybe but I remember the issue. It was one of the Peter David Hulk books, and when it jumped up, because I was a big fan of Peter David's run on the Hulk. And I'll never forget. I was like, oh. It was like a great Dale Keown cover and stuff. I'm like, hold on, go run out to my car and
I must have been collecting most of what Marvel was putting out at that time, and when it jumped up, and that was close to when Image came out too. So I almost had to knock off. I had to. There was a lot of cuts back then because I wanted all the Image stuff too, and they were so hard to get in my little small town.
I was gonna say, did you bought it at a grocery store then, or a drugstore, or?
It was a drugstore and what everybody keeps calling a dime store, which was basically a glorified craft store.
Yeah. Yep.
Ben Franklin.
I know what a Ben Franklin is. Yeah, they always had the real good candy in there too, like the candy displays and stuff.
Yeah. Now the dime store is a pot store in Portland. There's one called the Dime Store.
Oh, it's called the Dime Store.
Yes, it is.
I never saw an actual comic book store, like one dedicated to comic books, until I went into the Navy in 1994 in New Orleans, when I sold off my almost 10,000 book collection.
Yeah. Have you been rebuilding it ever since?
No, I started to at one point, but since we've been married, we've just not had the room to store things, and I have one short box beside me, and that is about all of the physical space we're willing to put into physical stuff.
Right. No, that
At this
And
you
isn't
know
point.
part
that's
of it mine too, or not?
Yeah, and part of the shirt box is hers, so I mean it's not even all mine.
I'm especially honored to have some space in your short box. Then, thank you.
Actually, you don't have it in that. I'm about ready to convince her to buy a second short box.
Yes.
If I could
Yes,
swing
the
the
argument-
camera, if I could swing the camera, there is a short box worth of comics sitting on top of the short box
Right.
and up on the shelf.
I guess your
And-
argument is gonna be because one is yours, and
Yeah.
one is mine.
That's
right.
fair. That
Right.
that is absolutely
Right.
accurate. Trish, you got it. To
And
me,
I
it sounds
have-
like that means go ahead and get the box.
Right. Yeah.
Well,
And I have to
I
take
mean,
care
I'm
of this
I'm so into that.
beautifully signed comic
Yes.
book.
Yes, I remember. Yeah, from Cleveland. That was such a funny. I don't know. I will steal the thunder if we get to that, but. Well, Trish, do you wanna broach the
Okay, so
It's-
yeah,
Wizard World
I've-
Cleveland
I've met-
2017?
yeah, that
Yeah,
sounds about
yeah.
right. Yeah, so I've met you, yet DJ hasn't, and DJ's the fan. I mean, he's the reason I know who you are. So, I was working for Wizard World in the photo ops department, and I knew you were there, and he knew you were there, and it must have been the end of the last day.
Yep, Sunday.
we
It
were
was Sunday
packing
late
up.
afternoon. Yep.
So we're packing up, and I'm like, I need to go to one booth. That's all I need to do, just one booth. And I get DJ on my phone on FaceTime, and I go over to the booth, and I introduce myself. I'm like, and he's a huge fan, and by the way, and here he is
You-
on my phone.
she runs up, like shoves a phone in my face, and there he's like, "Will you FaceTime?" And I think you said, "Will you FaceTime with my husband?" I think it was something like that. So I'm like, "Yeah, hey dude, what's going on?" Oh,
Yep.
And I
it was-
squeed like a little girl.
it was just funny because I think you might have even have run by first to see if I was there.
It's
then you're
very
like-
possible.
I think you're like, okay, I gotta get my husband on FaceTime. I'll be back. Because like my buddies were like, she's never coming back. I'm like, no, she's coming back. That was legit. Like you wouldn't run over here to do that to then not come back. It's like one of those things like, okay, well, I'll come back tomorrow and pick it up. It's like, it's Sunday afternoon, guys. We're leaving in like an hour. And I think that's when Wizard was even in that phase where they were ending the show Sunday like at 4 maybe, or so, like maybe a little bit earlier. Maybe.
It was. Yeah.
I think because they were kind of waffling, because by the time you get to like a Sunday, it's closing the show Sunday at 5. It's like, if they're not there by 4 o'clock, let's just, we got to drive back, whatever, fly back. So, but yeah. So that's how DJ first met, running up and here you are, like showed him the book and stuff like that. Yeah, that was funny.
Yeah. And then you recorded an intro for him on
Yes.
my phone for his show.
Yes.
And yeah, since the other guys were there that were involved in that book, I know I got signatures from everybody, and I saw the little drawing in there. And
that's my one drawing I do. So a little Cthulhu. That's like the only thing I can draw.
So I have to say that when I'm at Comic Cons of any kind, creators love me because I don't go to a booth just to browse. If I actually am interested in your stuff, I always buy something. And I don't want to just buy it. I want you to sign it, because what's the point of buying it if you're there and I can get you to sign it? Because I do it. So every book I've ever bought from a con has the author, or if it's the writer, I have the writer's signature in it. Or if I have both the writer and the artist, I've got both in there. So, I mean, I do these things because I want the industry to keep going. And you're lucky that I wasn't physically there, because she couldn't have said anything to me that would have prevented. I would have bought everything at your booth. Not like every copy, but I mean one of everything at your
No,
booth.
hey, but we'll talk when we go off the air because I've had a lot of stuff come out since 17, and luckily for you, there's a bundle price. So.
Oh boy. I was gonna say too, if you just told him that you're gonna buy everything in sight, it's like in a week we're gonna see an announcement from Rose City Comic Con that the newest announcement coming to their con is Dirk Manning.
I have not done Rose City yet. I want to so bad, but obviously right now with the current situation going on, I mean, we're kind of like placing bets about like when will we really open back up, and it's funny because ironically funny, I guess, that I was telling everybody 2020, I'm going to start dialing back on shows a little bit. My output is increasing. I got to be home. Well, I didn't mean everyone had to dial back.
Right.
I didn't mean like, it's like Dirk Manning says he's doing less shows. Shut it down.
Right.
But I'm looking forward to getting back on the road. And I've never been to Portland. Rose City's
it's a really good one.
Yeah,
I volunteer for it every year. I always help run it. I'm a volunteer there. So, or crew or whatever they call us these days.
I will say I'm not on the books this year, but we'll do a virtual Comic-Con, and that's the thing, like a lot of like friends of mine and stuff have been like doing like selling books online and things like that. I just did an auction last week with SourcePoint Press where I went to the warehouse, practicing social distancing and everything else. But I went to the warehouse and I donated a bunch of books to them for the live auction, which was fun. And I've avoided doing that for myself, but it's like part of the reason my office is blurred out in the background is $1, $2, $3, $4, $5, $6, $7, $8, $9, $10. Like I ordered all my stock for the shows, and I was going to do, because I did Astronomicon with Twisted, and I was going to do C2E2, and I had a situation arise, that I couldn't make it to C2E2, but I was going to be off to the races after that. Well, there hasn't been a show since C2E2, and so now I have my C2E2 stock. I have my stock for like what was going to be like 8 or 9 big shows for me. So it's like maybe I will do OfficeCon. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Like I got my silver Sharpies and stuff. Like, let's go. But we'll see what happens.
Well, I know that.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, when it comes to Rose City for this year, they're still talking about it happening. I mean, that's in September, so we've got a while. But I may
have to find out what our options are if they're still looking at guests and things like that. So
I'm really hoping it's still happening, honestly, because George Takei is supposed to be there.
Oh, nice.
So I'm I'm pretty excited about that one.
Yeah.
And at one point I was interested in meeting all the Star Trek cast, and when she had a run-in with Shatner as a volunteer, and I heard about how Shatner is behind the scenes, I was done. I didn't want to have anything to do with that, so I was very disappointed. I knew he was away, but I mean, the way she described how things were, and I mean, I even kind of heard things, and I was like, no, I'm not, no.
It gets tricky, 99% of the people you meet, in general, are just pretty cool, pretty solid.
Yeah.
Everyone has a bad day, things like that. I get that. But I've learned even as time's gone on, it's that 1% that sadly can ruin it for everyone. And I've had a pretty good run, with people I've met and people that I've, even my own like personal professional life, is I've just had a very good run with people I've known and people I've worked with and things like that. But it's like everyone always told me too, like sooner or later you're gonna get that one. It's gonna ruin it for everybody. Like, it'll never happen. Things that you treat people well, they treat you well. Things, and then sadly, it just causes you to kind of like your situation. It causes you to really recalibrate. But maybe you meet everyone but Shatner. Then that's fine. I don't know. It's like or whoever may be the person that is less than desirable.
I'm still interested in meeting George because I also like his partner Brad because he's we've seen stuff with both of them on there, and Brad's just as cool. So.
Well, and George Takei did that really amazing graphic novel too about the time of the internment camp.
He's also done that about the play about it, the Resistance, I think it's called. So I mean, yeah,
he'd be a cool guy.
He seems down to earth, or at least Brad keeps him down to earth about all of it too. So it's good.
You know, I tell people all the time, you know, when I'm at a Comic-Con, I'm at work, and as such, I'm not allowed to have a bad day. Now, you can have things going on outside of work and things like that, but when you show up to work, you got to work. And I've had friends who've had like very traumatic things happen, like their dog was dying, or, you know, I missed a show due to a family crisis that I knew I couldn't deal with the family thing I was dealing with my grandfather and then go to one of my big shows of the year. Just, there's a lot of pragmatic and logistical issues. But my big thing is, my worst day being a guest at a Comic-Con is still pretty amazing. You know what I mean? And you got to remember that. You got to own the fact that, you know, when you're getting started, and I don't know what it's like with actors or other people or even other creators per se, but to me, anytime, any day I'm at a Comic-Con and someone wants to come just chat with me about comics and maybe pick up a book, or we just get to geek out from it together, whether it be at a Comic-Con or a horror con or whatever, that's a pretty good day at the office. You know what I mean? And you got to own that. And like you were saying, you know, I mean, it only takes one bad interaction with one person one time to change things forever, you know? So just be cool, show up, have a nice time, and treat everybody well. You know, those are your customers. Those are the reason you get to keep doing what you're doing. So
other people have kind of redeemed it too. Like I was fourth in line for a Alan Tudyk picture. Basically, I was right behind all of the disabled, the ADA people. So when I got up there, he was smiling when I got into the room, and he's like, hang on a minute, and he walked past a curtain and he chewed some guy's ass out. But I mean, he wasn't quiet about it at all. He just chewed some guy's ass out real hard, and then he came back in, took a drink of water, and he looked at me, he smiled again, he's like, sorry about that. And I'm like, no.
And he was good to you, though.
Yeah, to me. I mean, so I mean, it wasn't about me. I couldn't hear exactly what he was chewing about, but I mean, at first I was like, oh my God, he's really mad. But I mean, he came back in, he smiled, took a picture, we were all fine. So I mean, that was good. And I mean, so that was different. But I mean,
I think that everybody that goes to a Comic-Con is in a super good mood usually anyways.
Right.
You know, I mean, seeing it as a volunteer, I'm you know, working somewhere in the hall, and whether it be you know, scanning tickets for photo ops or selling merchandise or just, you know, answering questions or line control, those people are having the best day of their life.
Mm-hmm.
So
well,
it all
that's
works
exactly
out.
it. And your job as a guest of a con, or I guess my job as a guest of a con, is to help perpetuate that experience and recognize that, you know, I'm there as ambassador of the show. I'm there as ambassador with my publisher. I'm there as ambassador of myself, my brand, my work. And again, you know, if you have an external stuff going on or whatever, you got to leave that behind during the time of the con. People come up, and on average, people get maybe 4 or 5 minutes with you, tops.
yeah,
Be cool.
Yeah.
And I'm notorious about when I show up at a show, I am at my table. That is it. If I'm not at my table, I am either filling or emptying my water bottle. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah, that's it.
Good.
I am there. I mean, I will sneak little bites of a power bar or something like that. Other than that, I'm there because inevitably, you know, if you leave, that's when someone's looking for you. But if you're having a bad situation or something's going on, it's also okay to take 5 or 10 minutes, get yourself together, remind yourself that you said you're at a Comic-Con, you're the happiest place on earth, and go back out there and just enjoy what you're doing. But I see people storm clouding sometimes at shows, creators and stuff. They're sitting there and they're just, bummed out. No one's coming to their table or whatever. It's like if you sit there and look like you're pissed at the world, no one is going to stop. Stand up, smile. Don't carnival call people. Don't carnival barker people. And when someone stops, oh God, I hate that. That's one of my biggest pet peeves is when people are like, hey, can I tell you about my book? It's like,
right.
oh, it just kills everything around you. You get these clowns holding up signs and stuff like that. And some people like the gimmick. I get it. My approach has always been, I'm dressed in a suit because I'm at work and I'm standing there. And when you take one look at my table, you will know fairly quickly if anything is going to catch your eye. You see like Nightmare World, Tales of Mystery, Love Stories to Die For. And now you see other stuff like The Adventures of Cthulhu Jr., Dastardly Dirk, Haunted Highons, Hope. But by and large, there's a certain aesthetic to the books I do. You'll know right away if something looks interesting. And then if you want to stop and you want to hear about it, I'll tell you about it. I'll chat with you for a minute either way. It's cool. We're all geeks. We'll all hang out, have a nice time. And then that's it. But that whole carnival barking and yelling and standing on chairs and stuff like that, I mean, the hard shill, I tell up and coming creators all the time, shilling or a hard sell gets you a sale. But treating people with integrity and respect, and people oftentimes don't remember even so much what you talk about is how you make them feel. And if you remember, like, even if like you're out of money, like say, DJ, you're out of money, but you come by my table, you're like, wow, this stuff looks really cool. And if I treat you well and stuff like that, I mean, again, I'm not trying to run some psychological game here, but if I treat you well, next time I'm at the show, next year if I'm at the show or something, like that Dirk Manning guy, he was okay, and I kind of wanted to check out one of his books. And you come by for a minute, and cool. You want to pick up something awesome. If not, no big deal. Just be good to people. That's all. I don't know.
I don't I don't sell at Comic Cons, but like I said, I obviously have a cat toy business because I'm sewing these things all the time. So I'm at craft fairs,
right.
And the whole carnival barker thing, boy, it really. Last November, I was at a show, and it's actually called Geek the Halls. So it's all geek related, and there
all
was
geek craft stuff, obviously.
Yep, all geek craft stuff. And there was a booth there for the census coming up in 2020, and they were very aggressive. And the booths that were beside them suffered for it because somebody would be looking at a product, and the census person would actively try to get them away from that booth to talk to them about the census. And I just remember, I don't know if the girl ever said anything to the organizers, but the person who was being affected, her business, at one point she laid into the people in the census booth and said, you are actively taking people away from my booth, and this is not right. It's not fair. I'm not going to deal with it anymore. And she said it straight. And I remember I told a friend of mine that was there with me, and I go, let's go buy something from her. And so we went to her booth and we bought stuff.
I've been pretty fortunate because usually when someone starts doing that, if you talk to them, they kind of rope it in. I had a really bad situation at a major convention, first time in a long time, about a year ago, when the person next to me was building up their display, and what it was doing is it was creating a wall, like if I'm like to stage left, so that the people coming in, and I was on the end, literally wouldn't see me. He'd look like he was the end of the aisle. And there's rules at the shows about you can't go more than 2 feet off your table or whatever. I was trying to be cool about it, and I'm like, hey man, I go, you're kind of blocking me out here, and he got really hairy about it. And he's like, well, then switch me spots. And I'm like, excuse me? like I've been advertising that I'm in this particular spot for 2 months now, and you just want me to flip flop because you're breaking the rules. He was like, because when they use you better call the manager, the Artist Alley manager, and I'm like, do you really want me to do this? And he's like,
Sounds
yeah.
like it.
He's just doubling down, like, yeah, bro. I'm like, okay. And I just couldn't believe it. And we reconciled to the best we could. He admitted that there was some stuff. Again, he was having a bad day. And I inadvertently had contributed to that. But it's like, I get that, but I also didn't make you break the rules, and it's, but that's it. We all just got to get along, just be cool, get along, be positive, be productive, be pleasant, But that's funny. I guess I never would have assumed that you'd have carnival barkers at a craft show.
Yeah, right. You do.
I guess that's my bad for thinking they're more of a meek and gentle people.
No.
But I get
no, I've definitely had some very rude other businesses. I remember even one time I was trying to, there was a booth that sewed products that I had bought before, like a year before or something. Right. I don't think I bought them from them directly. I must have found them in a store possibly. And so then I'm set up a couple booths away from them, and I came up and I started saying, God, what was I saying? Oh, because I said I have a dog treat business. I make cat toys and stuff. And they go, oh, they had a dog in their booth. That was the problem. So they had their dog with them while they were setting up, and they're like, I'm not buying anything from you. I'm like, okay, that's great. I was just coming over to say I have a dog treat business, so I've bought your pot holders that have dogs on them to use at my business, right, because they fit into my business. So I just wanted to say, hi, I really like your products. Sorry.
Did they apologize?
No. Not only did they not apologize, but every year after that, they were always either beside me or one booth away from me, and they never once talked to me.
I'm sorry that happened. Do you still have the pot holders?
DJ?
I don't remember seeing dog pot holders.
I was curious that you lit them on fire after that. Like, screw you guys.
Let's see. I can go over to my drawer here. Yep. You know what? I still do.
Oh.
Because I don't have all of them. I can't find all of them.
Oh, yeah.
Look at that.
Yeah.
And then I know they did sports teams, and so that was his team. And I think I got myself the Tennessee Titans and stuff too. But yep, I still have some. And that was probably 10 years ago. I'm glad you're supporting them
despite a poor personal interaction. Speaks volumes to your caliber as a human.
I had a store. I ran a store for 6 years on my own, and I sold for 35 different local businesses, other handmade products. And boy, that was a challenge.
I can only imagine. So, well, we're dealing with that right now with the I want to say the crisis. I don't know. I'm trying to say if the word crisis is overstating it or not, but with the comic book distribution right now, and the comic book store shutting down, and Diamond, and
DJ says they're not distributing.
Yeah, as soon as I heard Diamond wasn't going to distribute, I'm like, oh no, okay. So then I'm thinking, okay, you still got digital, and then like Marvel's like, we're not going to do anything, we're not shipping anything, we're not digitally sending anything out, and I'm like, are you literally cutting off your entire customer base from buying anything from you? That's a good business plan, Marvel. Good on you.
Well, it's tricky because the stores don't necessarily make money off of digital. But that, so you're kind of screwing the stores potentially screwing some of the stores that way. But the other thing that I think that's been really interesting is now, as a result, you have more comic book shops than ever looking at smaller publishers of creator-owned work, for example, like Source Point Press, for example, who are directly distributing to the stores. Like, we'll send you stuff. Like, hey, what better time than to check out Haunted Highlands featuring Twisted or Hope, things like that. So it's been interesting because now you have a lot of comic book shops because they can't get Marvel and DC through Diamond, and they need content to sell, and they're reading new stuff that they normally wouldn't have given the time of day, and like, wow, this is high caliber stuff. This is really good. My customers would like this. And it's like, yeah, you can have high quality work and not be at Marvel or DC. You can have high quality work and not be an Image or Boom too. Again, Image does good books, Boom does good books, Marvel, DC, they all do, but so does Source Point Press. So do some of these other publishers offer amazing work. And I'm glad that comic shops are finally getting to that point now where their hand's been forced a little bit, but hopefully now the follow through will be checking out other stuff. There's room for everybody,
That's the one thing I really appreciate about Todd McFarlane is that he's always been on a drumbeat of don't work for the big two. I mean, There's so many options out there. Guys, I mean, Captain America is always going to be in the status quo. Yes, it'll change here and there, but it's always going to be the status quo. Go where someone is going to tell a story from start to end. And I'm tired of seeing I don't want to know 75 years of continuity. I want to see Dirk Dastardly or whatever go from start to finish. Dirk. I want to know Dastardly Dirk. Go from start to finish. And I know that's probably not a good example, but I mean, I want to
jump on the ground floor or something and just go.
I want, at this point, I'm going to start Hope, and I want to see Hope go from point A until wherever she ends up.
Well, and that's the glory of it being a creator-owned book, is that whether you read books of mine like Hope or Tales of Mystery or Nightmare World or what have you, I can do anything I want with the characters because I own them. And I'm going to be talking about this in Right or Wrong Volume 2, how corporately owned superhero books are like a roller coaster.
Can't wait.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's like we didn't even set this up. But,
no.
It's one of those things where let's take Scott Snyder's run on Batman recently. Snyder and Capullo, an amazing run. They did the Court of Owls. They did Death of the Family. They did really, really, really cool stuff. But at the end of the day, when they walk off the book,
doesn't matter.
But it's just like a roller coaster. You get all these thrills and all these dips and turns and swirls and things. But when the run ends, you're right back where you started. And that's okay. I can enjoy a good Batman comic. Again, Tom King doing it. I mean, God, look what they did to Tom King. They kind of had a gentleman's agreement or what have you for a 100-issue run. And they're like, yeah, we're wrapping this up a little bit early. But we're going to take your last story arc, your culminating story arc, and put it in a whole separate series. Which, again, I don't work at DC. It's not my place to make those decisions, whatever. But again, I can enjoy a book like that for the same reason I can enjoy a roller coaster, because knowing that I'm going to start and stop in the same place. But a book like Hope, a book like Haunted Highlands, a book like Tales of Mystery, where the stakes are real, the consequences are real, and you can do a lot more with the story because you control it. I even think of a TV show like, again, with a horror motif like Dexter. Dexter was a really, really solid show. It was very, very, very good. It had its ups and downs, and again, arguably, it went a little bit too long. I mean, the Trinity storyline was the highlight of the thing by far.
We started it, but we didn't get far into it.
Okay, that's something we could go back and watch.
Yeah.
I got to be careful that with how I acknowledge you now. I'm glad you said something. Yeah, I'm going to be. How spoiler sensitive are you?
I'm not at all personally.
I'll probably forget the spoiler by the time we start watching it.
There we go.
Well, I'll try to be good regardless. But as they were wrapping up the run on Dexter, they said we want to do X, or let me back up. I don't know if they said that. As they were getting to the end of Dexter, the Showtime comes in and says, okay, we know the series is ending, but you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this. And they're like, wait, what? They're like, well, and because they had reasons that because they own the franchise, you know. So let me put it this, like there was I'm not going to say whether it ultimately happens or not, but Showtime was like, okay, but you can't kill Dexter. They're like, wait, what?
Okay. I was going to say they probably were told they can't finalize things. They have to leave things a little bit vague and open-ended.
Right. And now I don't want to spoil how that eventually works out. Does Dexter die? Does he not? Watch the show or read it on Wikipedia, whatever you want to do. But they put all this time into the series, and they had a certain way they wanted to go. And they're like, well, yeah, but you can't kill Dexter. You can't do this. Because, right, they wanted the opportunity to have spinoffs, and that's when it becomes that cruel reality. You don't own it. You know, and when you work for corporations and you work on corporately owned titles, you don't own it. You're playing with other people's toys. And that's fine. Now, the difference is that Disney and Warner Brothers pay more money. But they're also paying you to own that idea because they're going to turn around and potentially make a multi-million or billion-dollar franchise when they paid you for a script. They paid you for your idea. You know, and the other thing I think of is Jim Starlin, who created this villain called Thanos, you may have heard of.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you know, he created Thanos, or co-created Thanos. He also co-created Lucian Fox in Batman. Lucian Fox is like Batman's gadget guy. And in the Dark Knight movies, it's Morgan Freeman plays him, I believe.
Morgan Freeman.
Right?
Okay.
Jim Starlin tells the story about how he makes more money from the DC movies for Lucian Fox than he makes from the Marvel movies for Thanos.
Wow.
Wow.
Right?
Oh.
Right. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, and if I'm, or you get like Ed Brubaker, for example, who found out that the next Captain America movie was called The Winter Soldier, which is like the character that he re-envisioned Bucky as the Winter Soldier. He found out on Twitter that they were doing a movie based on his story arc. Now, don't get me wrong, he makes good money and things like that, but to me, there's a certain point where it becomes the principle of that. It's like, you know, obviously DC was taking better care of Jim Starlin than Marvel was in that case, at least initially. The fact that Ed Brubaker found out about the next Captain America movie, The Winter Soldier, on Twitter, it just leaves a real bad taste in my mouth, which is why, by and large, I work on creator-owned stuff. Like, I do Haunted Highons with Twisted. I don't own Twisted. They're their own band. They're a hip-hop rock rap crossover band. So I don't own them, obviously, but I do work very closely with them on the book, and we strategize on everything together. But with Hope and Tales of Mystery and Nightmare World, The Adventures of Cthulhu Jr., Dastardly Dirk, I get to control those properties because I own it or I co-own it, a majority share. So that stuff doesn't happen. You know, that they can't just run away with it and do whatever they want with the stories that I've developed.
Right.
So.
And so I know that you touched on this at the way beginning of our conversation, and I need to get it. I need to get you talking about it at some point.
Yes.
Cthulhu Jr. Like, okay, because I am not a comic book person. My comic book taste is 100% based on how cute the artwork is, and this fits. This is right. So yes, I have Grumpy Cat, and I have
right, okay.
I have a lot of I like this Scotty Young, the kid.
Well, we have a lot of Scotty Young stuff, and
Hope
would probably be up her alley.
But anyway, yeah, go
ahead. I just wanted to look this up. I wanted to find something online. I'm like, yep, that's my kind of artwork.
Yeah. Last year, 2019, Hope was SourcePoint Press's first venture into Free Comic Book Day. So the first issue of Hope was Free Comic Book Day. Well, then that same year, they did The Adventures of Cthulhu Jr. and Dastardly Dirk as their Halloween Comic Fest book. So the first issue of two of my series were like the big front and center for the company. The Adventures of Cthulhu Jr. and Dastardly Dirk is co-created with Scoot McMahon, who's done stuff for Oh Yeah Comics, Samurai the Samurai Squirrel, Wrapped Up, some really cool books. Scoot's a phenom. And like you said, his artwork is absolutely incredible. He's just an amazing artist. He's an amazing co-creator on that book. And The Adventures of Cthulhu Jr. and Dastardly Dirk is about a wannabe supervillain who has to capture the son of Cthulhu to be admitted into the League of Evil. And it's genuinely an all ages book. I mean, you look at Scoot, and it's funny because when Scoot and I were first working on the book, and we were kind of plotting it and stuff like that. And mind you, we plotted the book in a 2.5-hour car ride. I mean, it was that organic. It was pop, pop, pop. I mean, we're just like peanut butter and jelly, man. We just worked. It was great. But it was funny because when I was writing it, he's like, yeah, some of these it's not written like a kid's book, because that's primarily what he does. And I said, well, yeah, I want this to be an all ages book. Kids can read it, and they'll enjoy it for a different reason than you'll enjoy it, even for a different reason than DJ will enjoy it. You know, everybody will enjoy it for different reasons. But Scoot is, I would argue, one of the greatest living cartoonists of our generation right now. I mean, he is just absolutely amazing. He's fantastic. He's a great guy to work with. Very ridiculously good. And the fact that he creates so much of his own original content, the fact that we could work together on that book. But again, it comes up to the point earlier, like that's a book that we co-own, but we had to work things out where it's like, Dastardly Dirk is not Dirk Manning. Dastardly Dirk is his own separate character. Different people will tell you that I'm various degrees of dastardly, depending who you ask. But it's a situation where, because he co-owns the property with me, we had to delineate. Dastardly Dirk has a purple scarf and a purple headband, and as opposed to like the digital avatar that I use for myself with the black top and the black scarf and all that. So it was just funny that we had to kind of like have this very specific delineation about what that looks like. It's like, you don't own half of Dirk Manning, you own half of Dirk, who's his own separate entity.
And purple's a great color. Purple's my favorite color.
See, you can thank, again, that was all Scoot. You can thank Scoot for that.
I know,
We knew we had to
right?
make it look a little bit different. And again, people are like, oh, well, you made yourself a villain in your own book. And I'm like, it's just that the aesthetic is good. Like a cartoon bad guy, you think of the top hat and the scarf, and and even like how Dastardly Dirk like moves, he all kind of slunk over all the time, and he's got the flaming skull Aloysius always hanging out with him. But yeah, I'm excited about that book.
He is on the cover. Yeah, he's the little. So he's the little skull you said. Okay.
Yeah, he's a little skull. That's his familiar, his Aloysius. So the first issue came out in October. My original plan was to launch the Kickstarter in February or March, but obviously then with the state of world affairs going on, things like that, we did push back the Kickstarter for that. The book is illustrated. We're just kind of now, we had to kind of recalibrate my whole release schedule for 2020. I was going to do 3 books in 2020, but that was pre-COVID-19, some other stuff going on. So we've recalibrated a little bit, but the publisher's behind me 100%, which is nice. They understand everything going on. Timing is everything on some things. McFarlane, she was talking about McFarlane just launched $1 million Kickstarter for an action figure, and I see some other Kickstarters doing really well. And I like to go the Kickstarter to comic shop distribution route. So we're just looking at now, again, recalibrating things like that. And Cthulhu Jr. will come out in its entirety soon, as well as everything else, right along to the Tales of Mystery Omnibus, Tales of Mystery Volume 5, then Hope Volume 2. And some other surprises. Haunted Highlands Volume 2 got announced. We had a lot of stuff lined up. But yeah, Cthulhu Jr. will be on his way in his entirety soon.
Excellent.
Good.
Someday I want to make a little Cthulhu cat toy. I mean, it's gonna happen. It just hasn't happened yet.
when the stars enter their proper alignment.
Yes. Yes.
It's taken a real long time to get back to this question, but I haven't forgot it. You had mentioned in my book that you only draw that one little Cthulhu picture in the signature. Does that mean that you have zero artistic ability other than that?
He knows how to hire the artists or pick them.
Right. I was a really good artist in first grade. I just never got any better.
Okay.
Now, but were you really, or did your parents just tell you that?
Yeah.
Although my teacher did too. They thought, "Oh, you're gonna be an artist someday." But I peaked early.
Well, first grade is pretty early.
Yeah. I was 7. And when you look at the little Cthulhu scribble or whatever, that's for a first grader, that's pretty good. But I just never really got past that. But you're right. To me, even doing like Nightmare World with all the 8-page stories, I did one of the stories in Nightmare World called In the Meantime, which was 4 2-page stories, because I like to do different things with all stories. And there was a hot minute there where I debated drawing one of the 2-page stories myself, because 2 pages, it was a very simple concept for that particular story. And people was like, "Oh, you gotta do one yourself, But I realized, I'm like, why would I do the vanity thing of drawing it myself if I can have like a Len O'Grady or a Josh Ross or an Austin McKinley or a Seth the Moose or or it's like why would I do it? Like when you said, I have such great relationships with so many great artists that they could do it and do an infinitely better job. Jeff Wellborn or whatever, Jason Meek, the list goes on and on. So yeah, I like to think I have a good eye for art. Or Marianne Pascosta, again, amazing artist. But I would much rather let them do that, and I would just rather be the best writer that I can be, and hopefully be a pretty good one, and then let people who illustrate, DJ, to answer your question, let them focus on illustrating.
Yes. Well, I have some artistic ability, and I got farther past 7 years old. So I mean, I can probably do my own art, but I'm my worst critic, which means if I don't do what I think that I can see in my head, I probably get too hard on myself. But I wanted to concentrate more on the writing, which is why I've been all about the right or wrong thing too. So I've got, and I know this says don't do your grand opus as your first thing, but I can't get past it. I have to do it. I have to. But my grand opus starts out small.
Well, see, and I also say in the book, ultimately you have to do something that you're going to own. The problem with the grand opus opening with that is that if it gets so intimidating that you then don't finish it. Because make no mistake too. I mean, a lot of people consider Nightmare World my grand opus. I would ultimately probably consider Tales of Mystery. And there's days I'm like, God, what if I die before I finish Mystery? It's like, it gets intimidating. But you do have to follow your heart on what you want to do. And if starting small lets you get there, then cool. But if you want to go in full tilt, man, then you got to own it. And you got to do it. Right or wrong was intended to be advice. There's no one way. There's no one way to do things. And as you know, having read it, right or wrong is just about, here's what I've learned. This is stuff for you to think about. This is someone that's been there doing it and talking about it. And there's a reason I waited so long to do Right or Wrong Volume 2. And it's because I knew I had to get to a certain point in my career where I could say, okay, now let's talk about, because if Right or Wrong Volume 1 goes from I want to write a book or I want to make a book to making a book, you're teaming up with artists if you have to, whatever, and you make the comic. Right or Wrong 2 is going to be about, now that you have the book, what do you do with it? And how do you handle conventions, publishers, editors, sales, things like that? And it's interesting because even in the last year, I've had so many experiences, not all of them pleasant, honestly, that have are going to continue to inform that discussion about, now that you have the book, now that you are an established professional, now that you have the thing, what do you do with it? And I compare it to the journey as a martial artist. When I trained in martial arts for years and then went on to teach martial arts for years. But I'll never forget when I got my black belt. That's like the thing, right? Getting the black belt is like, man, that's it. I'm the beast mode now. I'm the guy. And they tied on my black belt and shook my hand and said, "Now you can begin."
Oh boy! Wow. You thought it was the end.
Yeah.
Or people think that's the end.
People do, but the black belt just means you have mastered, or you've learned all the basics. Now you can start your journey as a martial artist.
What?
And it's the same thing.
What are you a black belt in?
Taekwondo.
Okay.
Yeah, 2nd degree. I was testing for my 3rd degree when I got a pretty serious concussion that ultimately led me to have to quit training. Not that's the irony. It wasn't even a Taekwondo. It said a ceiling beam fell on my head. So it was it was board attacks martial artist.
Wow. The revenge.
So I had to make the decision to back off from that. Plus, with my writing career, my travel, and my conventions and things like that. But yeah, a lot of people get into martial arts and they get to black belt. Like, I got my black belt. Check it off the list. I'm done. It's like, no, that just means you've learned all the basics. Now you can begin. So Right and Wrong Volume 2 is going to be about, now that you have the book, now that you made a book, whatever that means, now you can begin. What do you do with it? How do you set up a convention? How do you set up a shows? How do you sell your book? How do you not become that carnival barker? How do you, pardon me, how do you deal with people? How do you deal with your peers? What do you do when people, whatever, get bad reviews, or talk smack about you, whatever it may be?
A lot of that would pertain even with anything you create, really. I mean, now you've created something, now what do you do with it? And so a lot of that is the same thing that I've gone through with what and because I've been at this for 16 years now, I think. So yeah, a lot of people need that information. It's definitely a learning process to get something out there once you create it.
Yeah, and one of my biggest points of pride with Right or Wrong Volume 1 was how my editor on that book, Leah Letterman, who amazing editor and amazing friend, a writer in her own right now. She's put together her own anthologies. She's published her own work. She was not a comic person when we started that journey, and when we started the journey of her being the editor for me. So she gets done editing Right or Wrong, and I said, Leah, be honest with me. How agonizing was it for you to do 200 pages about making comics when you're not a comic person? And she said to me, she goes, Dirk, I'm going to tell you, professionally as your editor and personally as your friend. She goes, I learned so much about writing in general and about life in general from reading that book. And it just helped me so much. And now that she does her own books and has managed an anthology project, worked with many creators. Again, I'm not taking away at all, and I'm not even taking an ounce of credit for any of the work she put into doing that. But the fact that a book like Right or Wrong transcends that, and so many people talk about how has helped them in so many things in their life, is really cool. And with Right or Wrong Volume 2, to your point, the same thing. You do crafting. I would hope that if I do my job with Right or Wrong Volume 2, were you to ever read it for some reason, there might be still things that are, right, which I know probably not gonna happen. But there would still be things that
audiobook.
Really
I'll listen to you.
Oh, it'll happen.
Yeah.
I'll listen to you read it to me.
Yes.
People have asked me for years to do an audiobook of Right or Wrong Volume 1, and they say, well, you got a good voice for it, and I'm like, I have a face for radio, and I guess a voice for radio. But wait, with the round of volume 2, about that fact that, yeah, now that you have a thing, what do you do with it? Because that's just like getting your black belt. Now you can start. Like your case, now that you made the cat toys cool, now you can start. Now you market it, you do a business, and how do you deal with that rude neighbor at the show? The person,
Right.
how do negative feedback, whatever, and navigating those circles. So I'm excited to get to it. I'm very, very, not a day goes by I don't think about Right or Wrong Volume 2, and I'm getting to the point now where I'm getting to sink my teeth into it, and there's gonna be some pipe bomb stuff in there, to use a wrestling analogy. There's gonna be some pipe bombs in Right or Wrong Volume 2. I guarantee
Before
it.
we transfer to wrestling, I do want to say one thing. So I love this, and yes, I took a lot from this, but I also used another one of my heroes, which is Bruce Lee.
Yes, the master.
Um,
Yes.
and the very first thing I took out of that book is, don't use that as a manual. Take what you want and get rid of the rest. So
Yes.
if I
Absolutely.
combine your two and I go back to my thing and say, yes, I'm still going to do my magnus opus, but I'm going to do it in the small chunks. I'm looking at the Marvel Cinematic Universe in doing that. Each movie, while it does fit into a bigger picture, is its own story, start to finish.
Right. Absolutely.
So I am going to do one graphic novel, start to finish. It is its
Right
own
on.
thing.
Yep.
It is its
Yep.
own thing. So it will maybe get expanded upon, or maybe I'll hate the whole experience and I won't want to do it again.
Yeah, it's funny because with Nightmare World, I did that too. I always knew there was a big picture to Nightmare World. There was this big universe. And I was 25 stories into the series with probably about 8 or 9 artists. No, God, more than that, probably even. Let's say a dozen, just for argument's sake. About a dozen different artists before I kind of told everyone, look, we're firing on all cylinders. We're rocking and rolling. I got to tell you guys something. There's a big story in this series. And like in the first 2 Nightmare Worlds, by the time you get to the end of the second one, I start to show it a little bit. I start to tip my hand a little bit that there's some big connections going on here. And I said, we can bring this together and make all your standalone stories you illustrated part of one big cohesive thing. And I said, but if I'm going to do that, if I'm going to lay my cards on the table, I need to know we're committed to doing it. And everybody was all about it. So that's what we did. We did about 52 stories altogether when all was said and done, and got to do that big tied together universe. And then Tales of Mr. Eve is a spin-off of Nightmare World, with a lot of the characters from Nightmare World reappearing in that series. But for me with Nightmare World, what I wanted first and foremost was, to your point, people to read it as an anthology. If Tricia picks up Nightmare World and just reads it, like, oh, I like that story. That story was decent. That one was great. That one was okay. I didn't like that one. That's fine. But ideally, as you keep reading, they all become one big thing in front of you. And I think that's a very good way to do it. And again, with Right or Wrong, I call it Writer's Guide to Creating Comics. It's not a manual. It's a guide. Here's stuff to think about. Like you talk about with Juke Keen Do, with Bruce Lee's book. It's a guide. It's things to think about. There is no one way. There is no spoon, to quote the Matrix. It's like, just here's some things to think about. And ultimately, I've always considered that my responsibility, but also my privilege, to be able to do that, to be able to hold the door and say, look, here's what I can do to help out. And if I could, help one other person make comics too, that's pretty amazing. And that's such a privilege and such a gift, to be able to do that, to be able to hold the door for so many people and be able to help so many people out. So yeah, I look forward to reading it, man. I definitely.
Has anyone gotten back to you and said this got me on a journey, or is not?
Yeah, tons of people. And I'm not trying to be cute, like, oh, we have millions, huge. No, but I used to have a shelf even of just books that people gave to me saying, I read Right or Wrong. And I got to the point I had to move them to a comic box because they were filling my shelf. But I have a box over there of books that I get choked up about. I apologize. That people like, I read Right or Wrong, and then I made this book. And I'll never forget the first guy to do it was a guy named James Moore. He's from Columbus. And he read the columns when they're Newsarama. And he brought me his comic, and he goes, yeah, because I made this because I read it wrong. And he signed it to me. And I asked him, would you sign it for me? And he's like, no way, you want me to sign it? I'm like, yeah, you made the book. And, God damn it. I'm going to try not to cry. James ended up passing away in a car accident. Several years later. I mean, but he made several more books since then, and I was real proud of him and just excited, and I was a fan of his work. So here we are, Columbus. This was in Columbus, Ohio. He's from Columbus. I'd seen him when I was in Columbus here, and they're doing shows, doing signings of Pack Rat Comics down there in Hilliard or what have you. And just last year at San Diego Comic-Con, I was at the Source Point Press booth on Saturday, and this gentleman comes up, and he goes, hey, you don't know who I am. My name is blah, blah, blah. And I worked with James Moore on this one book, which I knew the book instantly he was talking about. I'm like, oh my God, it's so nice to meet you. He goes, I'm a fan of your work and stuff. And he told me, he goes, I just wanted to come meet you and tell you that how much Right or Wrong and how much your work meant to James and helped get him started, and then in turn helped me get started. I know, right? And it just like, I almost cry every time, and it's been years since I put out any new Right or Wrong material. I'm so anxious to do volume 2. And, but yeah, I've had a lot of people over the years do that, and it's such a privilege, to do that, to hold the door. I've been burned a couple of times too, holding the door open maybe a little too much, but you just gotta keep your head up. You gotta remain positive, and you just gotta continue to help people.
Volume 1 was a column, or
Right or Wrong started as a free online column at Newsarama. Eventually, I moved it over to Bleeding Cool when Newsarama went through some management changes. And then the first book took a lot of those old columns that were at Newsarama that no longer were online anymore, and I reformatted them, and I kind of made a definitive edition. So one thing I'm looking at doing, and I've kind of hinted at this a little bit already, so I guess I might as well make it official. When I launch Right or Wrong Volume 2, I'm probably going to do a second edition of Volume 1. Same book, but just some updates on it and things like that, and maybe not make it that people have to rebuy it, because I don't ever like people have to double dip. But some of the websites might be out of date, things like that, and just a new addition to the book, second edition, and then do Volume 2, which is going to be about you got the book, what do you do? But doing it as a weekly column or even a monthly column became unsustainable. I tried to bring it back for a hot minute at Patreon, and then a bunch of stuff with me with the Twisted development deal for an animated series and stuff. And it's just like, I just need to sit down and do the book is what I want. I want to sit down and do the book. So that's on my agenda to get that out.
So you have a problem picking one direction and sticking with it too. There's so many things you want to create at once.
I'll be honest with you, I really don't, but rather it's a matter of time. Right or Wrong is a very labor-intensive project. It's a very labor-intensive project. And then you got to manage the deadlines of right now I'm currently working on the 3rd issue of the 2nd volume of Haunted Highlands. I want to get those in the can because we have a deadline of when the publisher and when Twisted wants to get the next Haunted Highlands book out. Not to mention the fact that Haunted Highlands got picked up for a development deal by Ken Levin, who's a major producer, and they want to do an animated series. So we need to keep that going. Yeah, right? Yeah, he's the producer on Preacher for AMC, The Boys for Amazon Prime, So when he comes to me and says, we want to adapt to this book, I have an obligation to Twisted and to myself to okay, now that's got to go in front. So I got to work on the next volume of that. But then that pushes this over here. Then the coronavirus comes in. And then this happens, and it shifts things around. So that's one of the reasons in 2020 I was going to say I was going to start doing less shows, which obviously I have. But then also with the Twisted deal and everything else, it's to me it's just time to get it all done. But I think I work very hard and continue to push, and like Twisted Haunted Highons and Hope came out back to back. The Mystery Omnibus was going to come out right after that as well, but I also didn't want to get reader fatigue. So we ended up pushing back the Tales Mystery Omnibus by a year, to kind of, there's a lot of factors that go into this stuff, so I don't have Disney or Warner Brothers bankrolling me because I own my own work. I bankroll myself, and my readers, I guess, in turn bankroll me, and conventions bankroll me, so it's a lot of factors, which again I think is stuff I'm going to be talking about in the next Right or Wrong book as well. It's how do you make all that work, Do
you have the same problem I do, where there's never a minute that you're awake that you're not thinking about business?
Yeah, I'm very much a workaholic. I always tell people being a writer is like having homework every day for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Or that being a writer is not a job, it's a curse. I don't get to play video games or watch TV. It's like I'll be watching, trying to do pleasure watch television, and I'm like,
and then you come up with an idea, and
well, it's like I got ideas I want to work on, but it's like
my
family wants to see me too, things like that. I have to eat, or whatever. So, but it's really just about that discipline.
And I have another writer friend who says that they watch TV and they're like, that scene would intro, and then they say the room, and they're like, so and so walks from this side to the left, and then they're like doing the script writing, and their partner's like, shut up.
Yeah. Shut up. Can I just watch the damn show? I had that conversation about a show I was watching recently, and I said, "Oh, yeah, I knew that was gonna happen." And they're like, "Oh, well, look at you, Mr. Smarty Pants." I said, "No, it's because of the parallel structure, because they foreshadowed it here. It's like Chekhov's gun. If it's hanging above the man in the first act, you fire in the last act." So the fact that they actually shadowed this, or way in advance, and so yeah, like I said, being a writer is it's a job, but it's also a curse. Foreshadowed it, not shadowed it. Sorry, pre-shadowed it, foreshadowed it.
You can call it whatever shadowing you want.
That's fair. Up is down, black is white. We're just in the darkest timeline right now, so it'll be all the shadows.
Yeah.
I know that I don't have the ability to see the mystery before it finally gets shown to me half the time. My only skill comes out when you're watching the opening, and all of a sudden they're showing you scenes of so-and-so that you haven't seen in 4 episodes, and all of a sudden they're showing you this scene with them in it again. I'm like, oh, something's happening with them now.
Yeah, that's going to be important. Right. Well, I try to, when I watch television, to turn off my brain and just be immersed, just enjoy it, which is why I enjoyed shows like The Walking Dead, which obviously I know the story, but it does not inhibit me because they change it enough. Eventually they hit the beats. Eventually they get there. But to me, part of the fun is the swerves that they give you. And the same with the Marvel Cinematic movies. The general idea. But I just watched again Spider-Man Far From Home. And again, spoiler alert, minor spoiler alert. But in the beginning of the movie, they make Mysterio look like the hero. And part of you's like, well, okay, that's not out of the realm of possibility because they change stuff up. And he does eventually become the villain. You realize he is the villain. Sorry, spoiler over. But but again, the fact that they can make you think that he's the hero because of how much they twist things in the cinematic universe, it makes it joyous.
It was a little twist. And speaking of twists, are you only into WWE, or do you also follow AEW?
I actually am more of an AEW guy than I am a WWE guy.
Sweet.
Oh boy.
I was so worried because so there's one guy at work that watches wrestling also, and he is also anti WWE, and I guess I'm not anti WWE.
I'm
I'm
not
just
anti
tired.
WWE either. No,
Yeah, I'm just tired of seeing the same thing happen over and over again. It's the same formula all the time.
Yeah, I mean NXT is en fuego, man. NXT is on fire. What they do on NXT is some of the best wrestling on television. But I would argue AEW is also some of the best wrestling on television.
They're just doing different things, and it's nice to see. It's nice to see that there isn't a 700-year-old man still running as the top guy in the company.
Well, yeah, that. Every time I think they've given up on the Roman Reigns experiment, they find new ways to. I don't know. It's Vincent Scott. I don't like to be negative about things publicly, especially because whether I don't like the person or whether I don't like the product, there are people that do, and I can instead talk about something I like, that's positive, and I can share my joy of something rather than tear something down. I will say, that being said, that I was very disappointed in them taking the belt off The Fiend to give it to Goldberg to set up an opponent for Roman Reigns where Roman Reigns would not get booed out of the building.
Yeah.
So the idea was, if they put The Fiend against Roman, they would have booed Roman out of the country. So they have The Fiend drop the belt to Goldberg, who then was going to drop the belt to Roman, because the theory being that they would boo out the part-timer, which, again, I don't think they thought through, because Goldberg really wants to look like a face and look like the good guy. So there was just a lot of, I thought, very poor decision-making made all around. And ultimately, in WWE, Vince makes the decisions, and
it sounds like he's making a lot less of the decisions, though. It sounds like he has really stepped away from doing stuff a lot.
I know he supposedly was with XFL, but now that XFL canceled, it got declared bankruptcy. We'll see what happens. But it's fine, because, the good thing was, instead we got the Firefly Funhouse match with Bray Wyatt and John Cena, which, for my money, was one of the coolest wrestling things they've done in 10 years.
I haven't watched a WWE match at least this year, but I haven't watched one in quite a while.
I would encourage you to legally find a way to watch the Firefly Funhouse match. If you know the history of
was that WrestleMania?
It was a WrestleMania.
Oh, okay.
If you know the history of John Cena, which, like from the beginning, from prototype up to now, it was unlike any wrestling thing you'll ever see. And it was more almost like a cinematic biography of John Cena and why John Cena as a character, as a wrestler, ultimately failed.
Okay.
Yeah, it was fascinating. I mean, I hesitate to even call it a wrestling match, because it's not really, but rather it's John Cena goes to the Firefly Funhouse, and it's kind of like an evil version of This Is Your Life.
Oh.
It's like a Willy Wonka version of it. But then also they did, because WrestleMania, there's no crowd. They did that Boneyard match, which was basically a Buried Alive match with Undertaker and AJ Styles, which was legitimately one of the best horror movies of the year. It's a cinematic match. It's kind of like the old. It's like I said. Like, I think I put something on Twitter about somewhere in the world Matt Hardy's waiting for his royalties check. Because it's like the Final Deletion style. Where it was a cinematic match between AJ and Undertaker, and it was filmed, and there was camera angles and lighting and sequences, but.
And I know Matt Hardy just showed up on AEW, so that's I haven't seen AEW in a few weeks now, but I know that I haven't seen it since Jon Moxley became the champion, so I know that he's the champion.
Yeah, Mox is champion. it's been good. AEW just has phenomenal. Some of my favorite wrestlers. I love Kenny Omega. I love Pentagon Jr. AEW just is an alternative wrestling program that's very, very good. NXT is phenomenal. Raw and SmackDown are Raw and SmackDown. I mean, there's flashes of good, but AEW and NXT have my full attention every time they're on. Raw and SmackDown I will have in the background, and I'll watch it when I'm doing email or writing or something,
Well, and so with the Raw and SmackDown or WWE in general, I go with the UFC's motto in that styles make fights. So it really depends on who's in the ring as to whether or not it's worth watching.
Yeah, absolutely. And Vince, I mean, obviously historically has a predilection for big giant muscle dudes.
Right.
But then you got NXT especially, which values, I would argue, wrestling more, true wrestling, true performance, true sports athletics. And then what's been interesting is you bring the NXT guys to Raw or SmackDown, even a guy like Finn Balor, who's incredible. And mind you, I mean, Finn Balor was the first Universal Champion, so they gave him a monster push. But then after that, he got hurt, came back, and they didn't know what to do with him because he just doesn't fit, like you said, the style of Raw or SmackDown. So Finn Balor ended up going back to NXT, which is better because he can go be Finn Balor again. He can be the Prince, he can do his thing there. So yeah, I think your statement on that is very accurate. And there's a Raw and a SmackDown style, which is very different than AEW style, than NXT style, obviously different than New Japan style. And it just depends what you want. But I think by and large, Raw and SmackDown are a gateway to wrestling for a lot of people. But now we're finding AEW, especially, I think, is not only catering to people that want something different, but hopefully showing people that there is something different that you can enjoy as well.
They've even opened the door for me, at least, to OWE, which on their YouTube channel, I don't understand a damn thing these guys are saying, but I mean, some of the guys that are on OWE are fun to watch. I mean, some of the bigger names don't do a lot of wrestling, but I mean, the littler guys that do a lot of flips and stuff, they're doing stuff that you don't get to see anywhere else. So I mean, it's
right.
Worth checking out.
Yeah, and even with AEW, like one of my other favorite wrestlers, and one of the biggest reasons I was bummed out I couldn't do C2E2 this year was Orange Cassidy.
Yes.
Who wrestles what they call sloth style instead of strong style. Meaning he like, Tricia's like, what? He does
I'm like, I have been Googling so many names during this conversation.
Okay, well, I will tell you, Tricia, Orange Cassidy.
Oh, Orange Cassidy's the guy that has his hands in his pockets.
Yeah, he doesn't get his hands out of his pockets. Right, see?
I love him.
Yeah, he's the guy that just comes in and he doesn't take his hands out of his pockets. And like he like does like the kicks and it's obviously so goofy. They're like, oh.
That style makes sense after you tell me he's the guy with his hands
I just
in
have
his
to know what the key words are, and then she knows what she's going.
Yeah. In Japan, a lot of guys wrestle strong style, which is they are really hitting you really hard.
Ooh.
Like strong style is you're gonna. I mean, it's not ballet. Wrestling will always hurt. Strong style is you're gonna
hurt more.
You're gonna feel it. So Orange Cassidy does sloth style, which he moves really slow. His hands are in his pockets. He does all this wasn't it the first time? Well, I don't know if it was the first time he was on or just the first time I saw him, but I remember him getting into the ring. I think someone knocked him down or whatever, and like he did that whole jump thing to get up without using his hands. Yeah, the tip up.
I was so amazed.
Yeah.
I mean, that was it for me.
He'll do like tope suicidas with his hands in his pockets. He'll like jump over the ropes with his hands still in his pockets. And, and of course, inevitably, the joy of watching an Orange Cassidy is when he does finally snap, for like a better word, wrestle. He can wrestle, but it's that long build up where he's just being a goof and like they take his sunglasses off and like throw him in the crowd and he just goes, and puts on another pair. It's just so stupid.
Yep.
It's funny.
The thing that
fun.
she's talking about, I think it was like a battle royal or a Royal Rumble style battle royal, and he comes in and they clothesline him down and he hops back up, and then the guy grabs him and throws him over the top rope, and he just walks out with his hands in his pockets the whole time. She's like, "Did he just pop back up?"
Yeah, sloth style. Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, he wrestled Pac at the pay-per-view at C2E2, and Pac's a monster. He's just a beast. But again, a guy that was terribly misused for a large part of his run in WWE, and comes in AEW and is just an animal. And then you have this super intense dude, like, I'll rip you apart, I'll eat your brains, blah blah blah. Then you got Orange Cassidy. So yeah, big fan of AEW. Big fan of AEW.
I would say, as a non-wrestling fan of all the wrestling that I've had to watch because of DJ, that I probably like it the best too.
Yeah. All the stuff is good, and you can have fun. Some of the old school guys hate it because it breaks kayfabe and stuff, but it's like, I want to be entertained, and I want to have fun. Give me something fresh. Give me something dynamic. You have some of the best athletes in the world, and then you got some goofy stuff, and it all works out. An amazing women's division, some amazing wrestlers. You got big guys, you got little guys. Jericho is quickly becoming one of the greatest of all time.
It was a good decision for them to give him the championship right off the bat.
Yep.
It's going to be a good decision to keep him in the championship picture for a while, but it's also going to be very important not to leave him the focus for too long, because there's going to be a point to where everybody's like, I'm a little over Jericho. It's not yet, but I mean, there's going to be a point where it's going to be like, he needs to go away now.
Well, and they will. I mean, and I don't want to spoil things for you, but one of the things I love is that, he's Le Champion.
Yeah.
Well, he's formed his stable, the Inner Circle, and again, holding the door, Jericho is now saying, if anyone in the Inner Circle wins the belt, we're all champion. We share that. And again, and it fits perfectly into that narcissism he has. Like, if one of my guys gets the belt, I'm still champion then, because that's one of my guys. So it allows him to put over guys like, I want to say Jack Swagger, which isn't his name anymore.
No.
Jake Hager. I can put over Jake Hager. I can put over Sammy Guevara. I can put over these guys. And if they become champion, the Inner Circle, if one of us is champion, we all are champions. So again, it perfectly plays into the egocentric Jericho character while also putting over the next generation of wrestlers, which is brilliant. And as a Smark, as a guy that gets how the business works, a smart Mark, a guy that still geeks out over the stupid stuff. I geek out over the stuff that's clearly fake, but enjoy it. But I'm smart enough to know what's going on to an extent. So I'm a Smark. And I'm a proud Smark, but I can appreciate not only the storyline about this egocentric Jericho guy who is clinging to the idea of being champion because he can't take out Moxley by sending all his other guys to hopefully soften him up. And if one of them gets lucky, well, because Jake Hager's champion and he's in the Inner Circle, we're all champion. I'm still the champion. And then even then, I was the first champion. So I'll always be Le Champion. And it's just, I love it. I love it. I love what Jericho's doing. Just amazing reinvention of his character time and time again. But you look at the list, Jericho, you look at the Painmaker, you look at Le Champion. He's just, a year ago, I would have told you that Jericho wasn't a top 5 of all time. He's getting pretty damn close if he's not in there. He's unquestionably top 10 at this point in his career, and he may very well end up in the top 5, in my opinion.
And
I was going to say, would you like to know who my favorite wrestler has been?
Yes, it's not Cassidy.
No, mine is like old. No, it was I don't remember his name. Mick. Mick Foley. Mankind.
Yes.
He was always my favorite from way back.
And he's a guy that has reinvented himself several times. He's a children's books author. He's a stand-up comedian. He's an amazing. He let Undertaker throw him off the top of the Hell in a Cell, make him one of the most iconic moments of all time. Yeah, Foley's another guy that is incredible performer.
Know your mouth and shut your roll, Michael Cole.
Rock, this is your life. Yeah.
If we beat the Hollies tonight, we can get in line for the champions. Whoa, 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 whoa. Who in the blue hell are the Hollies?
Right. So good.
Yeah, he's my favorite. DJ was trying to get me a like a celebrity birthday greeting on an app that he heard about recently.
Cameo.
And
Cameo.
Okay, Cameo. So he tried to find somebody on Cameo to do this for me. He goes, I can't find anybody that I know that you're really into. You need to help me. So I'm like looking on Cameo too. And I looked for Mick Foley. I did.
Is he on there?
I'm like, I
No.
don't think he was. Like almost, there's only a couple people on there that I was interested in. Of course, one is way too expensive. One is I won't remember his name either. Taserface from This Is Us. Chris Sullivan?
Yeah, from Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yes. He's on there, but it's like $175. And I'm
So-
like, I will.
And I heard about Cameo on Rebel Force Radio, so they're all excited about all the Star Wars voice actors. So I'm like, oh, Cameo. So I go immediately into Cameo and I start searching for people. I am literally finding nobody, and I'm like, oh my God. So I'm digging and digging, and she's digging and digging, and I'm searching for anybody at this point. And they're either completely overpriced or they're not there, and I'm like, holy crap.
Well,
Yeah, you gotta know your market and be cool about it. I mean, even with me with Comic Cons and stuff, it's like, I know the books, the price is $16.99, $15. Just be cool. Let's just deal in let's just deal in in one or two bills. Just be cool to people. Don't price yourself out of the market on that stuff.
yeah, the other people. Oh, one was from Comic Book Men, because we've been watching that. We finished that whole series.
Yeah, Ming's a buddy of mine. Ming, dude, yeah.
No, he was on there, and I'm like, oh my God. So there were three people that I picked, and it was Ming, or it was Chris, or it was Betty Bowers, the world's best Christian. She is hilarious. I love her to death.
I'm not familiar with her.
Finally, I got you.
Yeah.
Got you with a name.
So what's her name?
Yay.
Betty Bowers?
Betty Bowers. Yeah, it's a character, but it's I find her videos on YouTube or Facebook usually. And you'll.
I'm not a Christian, and I love watching this woman talk. She is hilarious and awesome.
Okay, right on.
She is just she is comic gold. But I was gonna try to find at least a picture or something so that you're finding the right person, and of course I can't find any picture that's not super tiny, but there's a
I've seen her, yeah.
I love her.
Yeah. I just didn't know her name. Yeah, I've seen her, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's great.
So
she was telling me about her forever, and then she made me watch a video, and I'm like, oh my God, I love this woman.
Yeah.
She makes me laugh.
Yeah.
I love her.
Very cool.
But yeah, so Ming, huh?
Yeah.
Do you know the rest of the guys there? Because
Ming, I know Ming, Brian O'Halloran, who is not officially a comic book guy per se, but runs an act. Those are the two that I'm buddies with. Brian O'Halloran is actually my faux karaoke nemesis.
Okay.
So, been a long-running karaoke feud that. Yeah.
We were watching. We probably, I don't know. We watched seasons of it. I mean, we tore through it pretty quick recently.
Yeah.
But there was one point where I said to DJ, I'm like, he never has a comic book men's shirt on, but he's always there. And I go to Wikipedia and I'm like, does he really work there or not? Because if he works there, he's not doing anything. And so yeah, I had to look him up or look it up in general, and they're like, nope, he's just the friend. And
True
so
words have never been spoken. He's always there. He's never doing anything. Ming,
right.
I'm gonna tag you on Facebook later, Ming, just for this moment. He's always around, but he's not really doing anything. I would argue that's Ming's like MO.
Yeah.
Well, the thing that we were both noticing too is that anytime a celebrity came in, they knew Ming, but not anybody else. I was like, Jesus, does Ming know fucking everybody?
Clearly, I mean, if I'm sitting here, I'm saying I know Ming, that we hang out, went to dinner with Ming, it's like.
So I'm only a couple degrees of Kevin Bacon away from Ming right now.
Yeah. You're 1 degree. Like if
true.
Show and he's there, introduce you. Ming's a great dude. Didn't mean to take your Christmas present away or whatever. Sorry.
No, it's all good.
no, it's my money. It's my birthday in 3 days, so good luck with
that. Right now we're not traveling very much, but I'll tell you what, hit me on Facebook and maybe I can make something happen.
We've been, so the thing we do usually for my birthday is I got addicted to escape rooms.
Yeah.
Nice.
Oh, I love escape rooms so much. I love them so much that DJ is rolling his eyes right now.
Rolling over. Not gonna lie.
Yeah. Okay. I just have him in the tiny little camera, so I can't actually see them, but I can totally see them.
He is smiling and joyous and is just delighted by this.
No, wait. We're going to take this aside to say I'm okay with 1 or 2 or 3, but when we get up to 7 or 8 or 9 in the same day, we're overloaded. That's
the same
much.
day?
Pretty sure we only did 3 in the same day.
We have done 5 in 1 day.
Are you sure?
Vegas.
Well, I know, but I didn't think we did them all in 1 day. We did them all in 2 days. Okay. So
24-hour period is a day. I'm just putting that. When you're talking about like 5 escape rooms.
Well, then okay. Then I probably.
I would be shot. My nerves would be like, I'd be like walking my hotel room, like, okay, what am I gonna do? Like freaking out.
How do I get into my room?
Walk into the bathroom, like, okay, there's a trap in here.
Welcome to my world.
So I got totally addicted. It was a couple of years ago, and I wanted to do an escape room for my birthday. And so my brother lives out here, and his wife. Well, not yet, not that day, but I did make DJ do one the very next day, technically. So, so we did one with the 4 of us, and then there were a couple of random people in the room, and so we did one escape room, and then the actual. It must have been a weekend, and then maybe my birthday was on a Monday or something. I'm like, DJ, let's do another escape room. And so then he and I.
Let's do an escape room.
So then DJ and I did one together the next day, and then my brother was like all into it too. He's like, he likes escape rooms too. So I'm like, all right, I got one in, but we've got.
He's just
DJ.
Doing the fumes right off the spoon at this point.
Right.
So we've got DJ and Mary, who are like the people who have to come with us because they're married to us, and so yeah, we did those for my birthday. So that would have been April of that year, and then maybe we did some closer to Christmas or something because we didn't have any more birthdays that year. But my brother's birthday is in February and mine's in April, so I'm at least guaranteed 2 escape rooms a year.
I know that we only have I think a few minutes left here, but I do have to ask you this.
20.
I thought it was 42. The answer to everything.
Oh, yes.
What is the ratio of escape rooms that you succeed in versus that they actually get you?
We were really good at the beginning, and then we just started failing. They started getting complicated.
But so like, what's your ratio?
Half. I think we're over half successes yet.
I'm gonna say we're in the 60% range.
So if I'm in like a dangerous situation with you guys, I have a 60% chance of living.
Yeah.
That's not bad because I probably would have like a 10% on my own. Well, I probably wouldn't get past the first clue. They'd be like, Like they'll do like look at the clock. Like,
Right.
Look at the clock. You know.
Well, we also, when he mentioned Vegas, we went to Las Vegas for our 20th anniversary a couple years ago, and that's when we did our huge run of escape rooms, because it was air conditioned. It was May. You do the math. That's why we're in escape rooms. But we also did what is it, DJ? Augmented reality?
That was virtual reality that we did.
Virtual reality.
Yes.
Okay, virtual reality. Okay, so we did this virtual reality game too. And we were in the gigantic room that just had the grid on the floor, and we had like the backpack with all the sensors on it and the goggles and everything. And so I just want to say that if you want to be saved from alien robots that have taken over your ship, you're going to want to stick with me versus the Navy veteran. I will get you out alive.
In my defense, there was a lot of input coming in, and I was really overwhelmed by what was going on. I was just so much input. I was just completely overwhelmed.
I was dragging a dead body with me throughout that whole ship.
Was that dead body DJ?
Yes, it was.
On that note.
Oh, it was so much fun.
Oh.
So she's asking me for communication, and I'm looking around. I'm like, I can't process information.
Anything.
So much lights and flashing, and I don't know what's going on.
We'd like go through a doorway. I'd be like, I'll go right, you go left, and I get nothing. And then I'm like, I'm right, and then I see shots coming behind me. I'm like, what are you doing? And I get nothing. And then I'm like, you need to work with me. I get nothing.
So I'll be your Huckleberry. That sounds good. Yeah, I like you, and you're my friend as well, but I want to survive.
Yeah.
I want to survive.
Yeah. Alien robots. It's kind of specific, but
we would need.
It.
I chose the alien robot scenario, so admittedly, I should have probably gone with the zombies because there was way too much input on the space station. Like I said, I needed less input, and it was just. It was too much. My brain was fried.
That's fair.
It was
I'll
so
do the zombie
fun.
one with you then. We'll go kill some zombies. That'll be fun.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, it was a great time. I loved all the gaming in Vegas. That was lots of fun. We didn't actually gamble. We just did escape rooms and virtual reality and ate at buffets.
I'll look into that next time I get a chance to go to Vegas. I'll have to look into some of the virtual reality stuff. That sounds really cool.
Yeah,
it was in MGM Grand, I think.
MGM Grand, okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember they had a specific name to their company there, and it was really expensive hourly. But it was so much fun. It was so immersive.
If it's worth it, it's worth it. You know, everything
totally worth it.
Getting more and more expensive there, so.
Yeah, well, that was my first time there. I think yours too, DJ, right?
Yeah, I've been through Vegas before, but that was as a small child.
Right. Yeah,
that's your first time you get to go and experience it.
Yeah.
Yep, that was my first time there. It was fun. We stayed in the Luxor because I really wanted to stay in the Big Pyramid.
Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah. It was cool.
Yep.
Good.
So, and now we have to do escape rooms virtually because we can't do an escape room in 3 days. But apparently, a couple of companies in Portland have just put out virtual escape rooms that they've been working on for the last month because they have no income.
I expect a full report about how this went. Drop me a line on the social medias, on the Facebook or the Instagrams or the Twitters, and let me know how it went. I want to hear about it.
Yeah,
are you on Instagram?
I am. All my social. What a good way to wrap it up. See ya. All my social media is at Dirk Manning.
Sweet.
Yeah. So you look for the guy with the top hat and the scarf, and that's me.
You know, I think the top hat and the scarf is why I had to come to your table to make sure it was you in Ohio.
Yeah.
Because I'd never seen a picture of you except for that one. And I'm like.
That's why I always had the button too. Like, yeah, it's me. Because people would argue, you're not Dirk Manning? I'm like, he wears a top hat and a scarf. I'm like, I don't wear a top hat and a scarf in real life. It's me right here.
Oh, that's funny. I didn't argue with you. I believe that you were Dirk Manning.
I wanted to tell the missus there that someone really likes ice cream.
That is true.
Wait, what?
Dirk is an ice cream fiend.
I prefer aficionado.
Fiend. I use the word fiend.
Fiend is also appropriate, though. Let's be In fact, that's what. As soon as we wrap up here, I'm going to go get some ice cream.
No.
I figure I've talked for a long time. That'll soothe my vocal cords.
Back when I was still on Facebook, because I have given it up over a year ago.
Oh, thank you. Hit you back.
I was on Instagram.
Yeah, and I'm now following you on Instagram too.
I keep a 666 follow count, but I've been looking to freshen things up, so I will make good on that this evening or tomorrow.
So when I was following you on Facebook, there were often pictures that came up with your face just hidden by a bowl of ice cream of some sort. Very frequently.
It said I have a face for radio, man. I tell you, we can't all be pretty. We can't all be pretty.
Ice cream is another good reason to come to Portland for Rose City Comic Con.
We have
a place called Salt and Straw.
Yes, they have those in Seattle as well. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Which then, I will. Like I said, I'm not booked for Rose City. Maybe if they decide they would have me, I'd love to go. But I will be in Emerald City if that's close enough by. We can all go get Salt and Straw ice cream.
I've never been to Seattle.
That's the August 30 something. No, August.
Yeah, they moved it because I think it was. Yeah.
Now we can stay to the Instagram, but yeah, we'll be at it pending it goes on still.
21st through the 23rd.
Yep, I'll be at Emerald City this year, so that'll probably be my. Yeah, there you go. See, that'll probably be my first show back at this point because San Diego got canceled. But if not that, then my first big one will be New York. But yeah, Salt and Straw is amazing ice cream.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very good.
We have those guys, and I know I see 50 Licks a lot.
I haven't had that, but I want to come to Portland. We'll do that too. So.
I like to make my own too. Do you do that?
Myself, no, because if I learned to make my own ice cream, I would.
That's all you'll eat.
I would die.
Leave the house.
I would never leave that. I would be dead either. But if you have homemade wares, I'd be happy to sample that as well.
I made some French toast.
I'm on my way. All right, I'm going to. As soon as quarantine is over, be like,
that's right.
Hello, heard there's some homemade ice cream. Yeah. Let me in.
Well, we do have an extra room, which is the closet I'm next to, because my podcast studio is in my closet. But
right.
We can get a bed set up in here.
I don't even need that. Just a couple bowls of ice cream. I'll be all set. Don't worry about me. I'll just curl up in the ball when I'm done.
Yeah.
Ice cream hibernation. Thank you guys. I appreciate getting a chance to talk this evening. It was very, very. It was good. It's long overdue.
I am just so glad that I remembered that you can't
We're
go
all
anywhere.
quarantined.
No, I like I said, I mean, as soon as you met, I'm like, yeah, let's do it, man. That'll be perfect. Our schedule's lined up and things like that. So we will have to do it again soon as some of the new the convention season picks back up, and hopefully I get the opportunity to see you perhaps in Seattle, and if not.
So when the original Emerald City came by, one of my coworkers, so I'm a mailman and I work in a very small office. So basically no more than two of us can be off at one time. And one of my coworkers had that specific weekend off along with somebody else. Gotcha. So I was like, I can't go, but it got canceled.
It's such a good show. Well, now put in now for the schedule. And
actually we have to bid on it the year before.
That's why he has this week off, because he had to pick it last December.
Right.
I will double check, but I might have the 21st through the 23rd off already because I bid on it last year. So, I mean, it's possible. And if it is, and it's still happening, I will go to see it.
That would be great to see you guys. But if not, we'll talk on the Instas and all the social medias. And we'll talk on the side. We'll have to, DJ, I'm going to help you expand your short box of books there so that Only so that Tricia can have her own box.
So that I can go buy him a new one and get the
Well,
old
there
one for
is
myself.
that.
Well,
And
that way, no, Tricia, I'm doing this for you. That way you'll have your own box.
Oh,
He'll have a box. I got you, dude.
I like how you spin that. You're good
You
at
like
that.
that? You like that? I would give her.
well, I do have to say that I am wondering what the larger story is, and I only have these 2 volumes.
We need to get you 3 and 4, and then we need to get you into Tales of Mystery. There's 4 volumes of that so far. So yeah, see, I think it's very apropos, and Hope. And what I'll do is, obviously, Tricia, I gotta get you the first issue Cthulhu Junior, and
Oh God, yes.
and Hope. I think you'd really enjoy that, both of you. So, and then of course with Haunted Highlands being looked at as a developmental deal for a television series,
That's
gotta
crazy.
get you on the tip on that. So we'll talk. I know you got a
And-
birthday coming up. We can make some magic happen here for some stuff.
All I can offer is cat toys and dog treats. Do you have pets?
Like I said, you have a birthday coming up, so
You're gone. You're gone too often. Well, I just want to show. Well, I can show it to you later too. It's somewhere here. But I'm working on a dumpster fire cat toy for 2020.
that's amazing. I mean, when you get that Cthulhu one, let me know.
Right.
Doesn't matter if I have cats or not. I just want.
Oh,
the Cthulhu.
right.
Well, I do like that dumpster fire. It's cute.
Oh.
I know. It was a
What
really
about
good
a
idea.
Dirk Manning limited edition cat?
Yes.
You could do like a top hat and a face with the
Scarf.
scarf over
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very, I don't want to say simple look would be a little perhaps demeaning, but it's a very, it's a simple
it's
look.
not hard.
Oh,
It's not hard to
Yeah.
it's not hard to pull off.
Yeah, yes, you got the model right there.
We
so.
could cartoon it up a bit because I mean
It's only takes like black and like peach, only 2 colors,
maybe some
I could
purple.
do that. Yeah, I've been making chickens this whole time otherwise, so.
Oh, cute. Well,
Well,
again,
Anyway.
happy birthday.
Okay.
We'll talk, and we'll have to arrange some sort of birthday present for you.
Yes.
Oh,
So
boy.
we are going to have a green room after show for just the 3 of us, but for the guests, for the viewers that will see this, because this is just a recording for us here, we thank you for joining us. Thank you, Dirk,
Yes.
for showing up.
Thank you for having me. People want to stay in touch, they can look at dirkmanning.com, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all at Dirk Manning, and I'll hopefully see a lot of you there, and see you once we all get back on the road again.
Yep, there it is. Website.
Fufu Jr. and Dastardly Dirk.
Yes.
And we will see you at the greatest show and emeraldspectre.com to find all the podcasts. So we'll see you later, guys. Bye.
Bye.